What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Parallel Beats, and today's video is going to be the first in a brand new series, Logic Basic Tutorials. In each video, there's going to be 3 tips or tricks about Logic Pro X. That's the DAW that I'm working on. So let's not waste any time and get right into it. Now, if you click New from Template, they're going to come up with a bunch of templates with presets, preset characteristics, hip-hop, electronic, songwriter, multi-track. They're all going to have their own perks that are already set up in them. We're just going to start out with an empty project, so we are going to choose that. Actually, let's check out details here. Okay, so let's check out details here. So the first thing you see here is use musical grid. Check. Yes, you always want to use musical grid. I've never seen someone not use a musical grid. It's always beneficial. Tempo or BPM can be either changed with this slider, or you can do tap tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's going to take the time in between your clicks just to tell you what BPM that you're tapping at. If you have a BPM in mind, you can just tap away so you don't have to worry about finding the correct with trial and error with the slider or once you're in the project. So the key signature, basic, you can choose your key signature. We'll just stick with C major today. There's also a major minor switch, 2 buttons, you can do that. Time signature, also very basic. 3/4 time, 4/4, the 2 most common. So your audio input source, mine right now is the Scarlett 18i8 USB interface, which I'm also going to be doing a review on very soon. So we're going to keep that just like there. That's also my output. I'm listening through the headphone out. Then you're going to go to your sample rate. I'm on 44K right now. For anyone who doesn't know, your sample rate is how many samples your converter, which my converter is inside my interface, it's how many samples of audio your converter is taking each second. Okay? So mine's going to take 44,000 audio samples each second. And for those of you who don't know, also bit rate, which is 16 and 24 mainly, within each of those 44,000 samples, 16-bit will take 16 pieces of information, 24-bit will take 24 pieces of information. The highest you can go is 192, but that would explode my laptop, so we're not going to do that right now. Now, frame rate isn't really important with any audio that we're going to be doing right now. So we're going to choose that, and that's going to create a new project. And it's also going to have a selected track, so we're also going to do that. When you select a track, here we go. So you can choose a synthesizer / instrument. Right here you have how many tracks you want. You have your output source right here. When you have multiple tracks, you can click ascending, and your input 1 will go to output 1. Your input 2 will go to output 2. Input 3, output 3. We only have 2 outputs right now, so we're going to stick with that, and we're going to create a new track. So that is creating a new project right there. And as we get further into this series, we're going to learn what all of this does here. So there was the first one. That was creating the project. Now the next thing that we're going to do, the first thing you should do when you go to Logic, you're going to go into Logic Pro X at your top tab. You're going to go into Preferences, and you're going to go into Advanced Tools. Now all of this right here is going to be downloadable content, DLC, and it's going to take somewhere between 40 and 50 gigs of storage on your computer. I suggest you do not keep this part on your external hard drive, for if your external hard drive is disconnected for some reason, if you're traveling, you won't have any of this. So what this is going to do, by the way, you check all of these or enable all, and it's going to start a download. What this will do for you, just one example, if we create a new track and go to drummer track, this was the first thing that I noticed when I got just the bare version of Logic with none of the DLC, was that as you go over to your guy, you can choose a bunch of people. You have your first one, but you can't choose any of the other drummers here, so you won't have any of them. The next thing I noticed was if you go over to your library tab right here, you will not have a large number of these synthesizers and instruments. And when you're making music, you want options, so you definitely want to download all of that stuff. If you can see at the top, if you guys remember when I was tapping, when I was tapping for the BPM for the tempo, it ended up around 161, and that's and we chose C major and 4/4 time, so that is what it put up here in this bar, and we're going to learn how to customize that in one of the other videos. That was the second thing for this video. That was getting the downloadable content. Now the third thing that we're going to do is we're just going to go over these buttons at the top right here. So we're going to start, we'll just go left or right. So left here, top left corner, this is going to be your library tab. And this is where you're going to have your instruments and your synthesizers, any sound that you want to make through MIDI. It's all going to be right there. You have your inspector tab, and this is essentially a channel strip. You have one channel going down here, which is represented by the channel that you have highlighted in here. As you see, we have the classic electric piano. We see that down here. And then we have the Brooklyn drum kit. We see that down here, so we know which is which. Okay. So this is essentially one channel strip from your mixing window, which is going to end up being every single channel that you have. This seems pretty simple now, but as you get 30 to 60 tracks in, it can get pretty confusing. So in another video, I'm also going to teach you how to organize your tracks and how to make it as easy for you as it can possibly be. So as we move down the channel strip, this is going to be very quick. You have your instrument right here. This right here is going to be your compression meter when you add compression, and your EQ. This is going to be an EQ thumbnail. When you go to your MIDI effects, you can just have effects on your MIDI. Very straightforward. Your drum kit here is again what you chose for your instrument. You can choose any of those synthesizers. You can turn it on and off. That'll turn on the sound and take off the sound. You have your channel EQ, and notice that as we make a change right here, just boost it randomly, you'll see it show up in the EQ thumbnail, so you don't always have to go in to the EQ to see what's going on. We'll recall the default there, and we'll move down. You have your compressor, just standard, and you have your multipressor. Now these right here are the audio effects slots. These are going to be your plugins, any of that stuff, dynamics. Then you're going to have your sends right here. Going to bus 1, you can go bus 1 to 64. And a little tip with the buses, if you were to hit option and then tap, it'll send it to that bus at unity gain. So we'll pull that back down. This is your output right here. You have your pan right here, 63 right, 64 left. Those are MIDI values because Logic is a MIDI-based DAW. So just know that these are not decibels going right and left. These are MIDI values. Because 63 plus 64 is 127, and 0 to 127 are the MIDI values. You have your fader for this channel, and you'll see what's going on right here. And as the audio is playing, you'll also see a live meter right there. So if I were to play this drum set, you'll see that. So there we go. You guys saw that meter in action. Then you have your mute and solo buttons. Muting will turn off the track. Solo will make it so that is the only track that can be heard. It'll mute everything but that. And at the top, we're going to move on to the next thing here. Now this is your toolbar. This is going to bring down lots of options that we will go over in a later video. One example is nudge. If I were to take this, I could choose a nudge value. Let's say just a full note, and we can nudge it a certain way. We can nudge it right and nudge it left. This is very important as you're getting down to tiny adjustments like 10 milliseconds here when you're trying to offset something just a tiny bit. As you can see, we can spam this and you barely see it moving there. You guys can see it crawling along down the line. So we will get that back and get that toolbar back up. Now this is actually a very helpful button right here. This is quick help. And when this is on, you can go to any button you want, any button, any track, anything, and it will give you a description along with hotkeys about what it does. So as you can see here, if we go to the inspector button with quick help button enabled, then we'll see what we just talked about before with the inspector window. So right here we have smart controls, which will quickly bring up any controls that are part of the instrument. For example, with the drums here, we have kick, snare, hats, cymbals, toms, and then we have compression and the effects. And the main idea around the smart controls is that it's just very basic, watered down, and it's made for speed mixing. Next over, we have our mixing window, and this is going to be every single track that we have. And as in the inspector window how there was one track going down, the mixing window is all of our tracks going straight down with the same information that was in the inspector window, except they're all just lined up next to each other. In the last two, we have the stereo out and the master. Stereo, we can put some effects on for mastering. And as an example, I'll create some more tracks here. I'll just quickly duplicate some of those and show you how this can grow. And so these would be all different tracks in a normal recording, and that can grow to be pretty big, so I'll teach you how to organize that in another video. So let's get rid of those, keep things simple. And then the next one over, we have the editor button, so we can bring that up. And in this case, since this is a MIDI instrument, this is going to be a MIDI editor. I will go over all of the buttons down here in another video. This is just the first basic video. We're going over all of the buttons at the top, and you can edit not only MIDI, you can edit audio. You can turn this into flex time and flex pitch, which will be big. I'm also going to teach those in another video, and I find myself saying that a lot, but this is just the very first episode, and there's so much to teach with this DAW. So I'm going to be putting out a bunch of videos. Tell me if you guys like this series, and I can make endless videos on this. So if we actually go into the editor for the drums, you'll be able to choose your guy. You can choose what kind of kit you want, basically how loud and complex their drum patterns are, and you can affect fills, swing, and you can choose what you want them to use more of and less of. That's something that you can do with editor. So we have the rewind button, the fast forward button, play from beginning. Another quick tip, if you were to drag this along and hit enter, it'll bring you back, enter/return, it'll bring you right back to the beginning there too. So we have the play button, and stop will show up right there. You have the record button, you have the LCD here, and what this is going to show you, obviously the BPM key and signature, and then you also have the time of where you are. You can show beats and time. And then I'm going to show you guys how to customize this in the next video. So right here we have the cycle button. Click that, and this little bar, this little extra bar will show up, and it'll get highlighted there. And so what you can do is, let's say we only want to listen from here on, but we don't want to listen to all four. We just want to listen to this one bar. When we hit play, it'll just keep cycling that one bar. Now this applies to everything. If you're doing a recording and you have the cycle on and you record in that cycle, once the recording hits the end of the cycle, it will re-record over everything you've done. So you want to be very careful of that. You have your tuner right here, and since we don't have an audio instrument like a guitar, something like that, it's not going to let us use that, but that would just be used to tune the guitar. You know, I never use the replace button. I'm going to be totally honest. We have solos here. We have our count in, and then we have the metronome, which can either be off when we're playing. Here, I'll show you an example of that. Let's take off that solo. So it can either be off when we're playing, or it can be on when the audio is playing. I don't know if you guys can hear that if I bring this down. Now you guys can probably hear that in the background. So lastly over here, the two most important things you want to know are the Apple Loops button, and just to let you know, the first time you open this, it's going to index the Apple Loops, and this could take forever based on your processing speed. So you have all of your loops here. These will actually change time based on what we have up here. So if we go back to beats, we have 161 here, and even though this says tempo 68 or something like that, let's add a guitar. Let's go to the top here and just throw it in, and it'll automatically sync up with what we have. We can click that and loop that out. And to loop it out, I just hit L. You just highlight something, hit L, and that will loop it out or loop it back. So the other important thing over here are the actual audio files coming in. So when you have audio files, they're all going to be here, and it can go down farther and farther based on how many audio files you have. But just know that if you delete a file from your audio from the main window right here, it will still be in the project media files tab right here. So you want to make sure that if you're trying to declutter a project, that you really are getting it out of here also, or else it's just gonna still be in the project. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed episode 1 of my Logic Basic Tutorials series. Let me know if there's anything else that you want to see. Until then, peace.